I transmigrated into a sweet romance novel and successfully redeemed the tragic supporting female character. Just when I was ready to leave this world, the girl Willow suddenly confessed her love to me. I couldn't bear to see her return to those tearful, lonely days of her past, so I made the firm decision to stay. We fell in love like any ordinary couple, and under everyone's blessings, we stepped into marriage. Until the day of the wedding, a child suddenly rushed into the venue. He shouted, "Willow is a heartbreaker. She'll betray you in the future. Don't marry her." I frowned in confusion and asked, "Who are you?" I said, "Willow is my wife. If you spread baseless rumors, don't blame me for being rude." But the boy's eyes turned red as he stared at me and said word by word, "Dad, believe me, if you marry her, you'll never have peace for the rest of your life." Chapter 1. All the guests present froze. A few seconds later, their tense expressions turned into barely suppressed laughter. I'm 24 years old. The boy looks 14 or 15. How could I possibly be his father? Yet the boy seemed oblivious to the mocking glances around him. He kept staring at me with reddened eyes and said, "She's a two-timing manipulator who only sees you as a money-making tool. She tells you not to come home during the holidays, asking you to stay out and earn more, but the real reason is that she doesn't want you interrupting her private time with another man. She's been entangled with that bastard Makoto for over 10 years. At the mention of Makoto, my whole body turned cold. He was the male lead in the novel, the man Willow had secretly loved for more than a decade. But how could this child know about Makoto? Finally, Willow spoke. She bit her lip and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? Makoto and I haven't had contact for a long time." Then she looked at me nervously, "George, don't listen to him. We haven't even met each other." Chapter 2. Willow wasn't lying. Makoto hasn't returned since he went abroad 4 years ago. During these 4 years, our relationship has been great. We never once argued over this past unrequited love of hers. I nodded and said, "I believe you." The boy eagerly responded, "Dad, she's lying. Let me tell you." But before he could finish, the hotel security arrived late, grabbed him, and tossed him out of the venue. Family and friends said, false alarm, continue, continue." Where did we leave off earlier? People raised their glasses to lighten the mood, but it was clear that the tension was beyond repair. The venue was in disarray, flowers scattered everywhere, and the host was frozen in shock, never having encountered such a scene before. The hotel management came to personally apologize, offering to compensate us and host another wedding. Willow was furious, her face red. She shouted, "How could your security be this bad? You couldn't even handle a child. Do you realize this is my once-in-a-lifetime wedding?" Willow, usually gentle and considerate, rarely ever got angry. Once the crowd dispersed, she leaned her head on my shoulder and spoke with a tone full of grievance. "Why aren't you saying anything? Aren't you angry?" How could I not be angry? But my emotions were a tangled mess, and I couldn't sort through them. I remembered that day, when the system said everything was over and I could go home, but my story with Willow would end there. The system asked, "Do you want to stay?" I answered, "Yeah." Willow said she likes me too. How should I put it? Before, when I read sweet romance novels with no side stories, I automatically imagined that the male and female leads would have a smooth life together. But now, someone suddenly barged in, telling me that the side stories were written but the ending was a mess. I wasn't sure if it was true, but it felt as uncomfortable as if I had swallowed a fly. My mind was racing, and I couldn't sleep all night. Then, out of nowhere, a figure slipped into my arms. Willow, drowsy and cute, pouted, "Hubby, I'm so cold, hug me." She fell asleep in my arms peacefully. Listening to her steady breathing, I couldn't help but feel guilty. Willow has always been understanding. Whenever she was upset, I never had the chance to comfort her before she calmed herself down. Despite the huge disruption at the wedding, she didn't get angry at me but comforted me. She told me not to feel guilty, that this event wasn't something I could have foreseen. With that thought, I shook my head and pushed all the tangled thoughts out of my mind. Chapter 3. I took care of all the follow-up arrangements for the wedding. To make it up to her, I promised Willow that I would give her another grand once-in-a-lifetime wedding. That night, as I returned with some friends along the mountain road and parked my motorcycle, I unexpectedly saw Andrew at a roadside barbecue stand. He was the very man who had crashed our wedding and claimed to be my son. For a moment, I wondered if he was like me, someone who had also entered this world from outside. But the system had once clearly stated, there can only be one outsider in each story. Andrew stared blankly at me for a long while before speaking.
This is the first time I've seen you like this.
It was just my usual casual outfit, yet it seemed to stir up countless memories for him. He said, "You once told me that you used to ride motorcycles when you were young, but I never believed you.
I always thought you were just bragging.
After all, I'd never seen you have any real hobbies. You were either working overtime or away on business trips, never resting, never slowing down. You hated anything risky, always saying, 'A wise man does not stand beneath a crumbling wall.'" He sighed deeply.
You used to go fishing in your spare time.
But one day, when you and Mom argued, she broke all your fishing rods, and you never went again. At most, you'd play games with your friends. Later, when Mom scolded your friends for taking up your rest time, you gave up even that. I smiled and said, "That's impossible.
Willow isn't that kind of person.
And besides, there's no way I'd ever accept that kind of life, working like a machine from dawn to dusk."
He looked at me and asked, "And what kind of life do you have now?"
Even though I was still technically an orphan in this world, the system had given me an identity. I studied here, pursued Willow, fell in love with her little by little, and made some good friends along the way. I had a stable job, my own circle of hobbies, and was about to start a family with the woman I loved. I smiled and said, "So no, I'm not like what you described. I'm happy with my life now, and I wouldn't change it just because of a few words from someone else."
Finding his behavior strange, I turned to leave.
But Andrew reached out and grabbed the corner of my jacket.
He said, "Then what if Willow is pregnant? What if you're about to become a father?"
Chapter 4.
I froze, studying Andrew's features closely for the first time.
When he furrowed his brows, there really was a faint resemblance to me. That night, as Willow slid her fingers along the hem of her nightdress and leaned in close, sparks were about to ignite. But I found myself checking whether all the protection measures were in place.
Willow frowned. "Honey, what are you doing?" I said, "It's nothing.
I was just thinking, what if you accidentally got pregnant?"
She cut me off, clearly annoyed. "I don't want to have a kid this young. Who would take care of it? Didn't we agree on this already? I still have so many places I want to travel to. I'm not giving up my life for a child."
I hurried to explain, No, I meant if it happened by accident. I just want to be prepared, that's all. Right now, I'm the only one working, and if we had a baby, expenses would go up. It would definitely affect our lifestyle."
She frowned. "Don't tell me those things.
If it really happened, you'd obviously." Willow stopped mid-sentence, suddenly realizing something. She looked at me and said, "George, you believed him, didn't you?"
"You really think he's your son?"
She continued, her tone trembling. "You've been acting strange ever since that man appeared. You believe what he said, don't you?
You think I'll betray you someday, right?" I was stunned.
Willow's voice grew muffled, she choked slightly as she spoke. "He's just a stranger, but you're already letting his words define our future." In the darkness, I reached out and pulled her into my arms. She nestled against me and whispered softly, "I know you've been under a lot of pressure lately, with work and now planning the wedding again.
I understand. But still, being doubted by someone you love, it really hurts."
The next day, Willow decided to go to the hospital for a checkup, just to put my mind at ease. As always, she didn't have the courage to look at the test results first. She left them for me to read and tell her later. While I sat in the waiting room, staring blankly at the report in my hands, Andrew appeared and took a seat beside me.
He said, "My birthday is July 23rd. 9 months later."
The report showed that Willow was already nearly a month pregnant.
Andrew sighed. "You're being foolish." I frowned. "What do you mean?"
He said, "Love and effort should go both ways.
Family responsibility should never rest on one person's shoulders."
Right. If you're short on money, then why keep up those extravagant expenses? What's the point of redoing the wedding?
I sighed.
Willow said it's her once-in-a-lifetime wedding. He interrupted sharply, "There are plenty of once-in-a-lifetime events in life. We give them meaning to celebrate life, not to torture ourselves. Pregnancy is also a once-in-a-lifetime thing, yet Willow insists on staying in a postpartum care center that costs $200,000 a month.
Would you agree to that?" I replied, "We'd have to live within our means." He laughed bitterly. "That's what you think now. But it's not like you gave in all at once, you just kept compromising one step at a time.
And while you're working yourself to death in a foreign land, do you know what Willow is doing?"
Chapter 5. I looked at Andrew, hesitation swirling inside me. As I turned to leave, he called out again. You still don't believe me, do you? I replied. We're a couple, and we're about to get married. Having a child is the most natural thing in the world. As for what happens afterward, that can be worked out together. It doesn't necessarily have to end up the way he said. He said, then tell her she's not pregnant yet. After a short pause, Andrew closed his eyes and said softly. Half a month later, tell her the truth then. I didn't understand what he meant by that, or why he said it. That night, Willow said her best friend needed to talk to her and grabbed her bag before heading out. I followed her. She hailed a cab, but instead of meeting her friend, the car stopped beside a restaurant. The next second, she pushed open the door and walked in to sit across from someone I knew all too well. Makoto. Makoto reached out his hand. Long time no see, he said with a polite smile. I thought you wouldn't come. Chapter 6. It had been 4 years since they last saw each other, yet Makoto was exactly as described in the novel, refined, courteous, and impeccably put together. Unconsciously, my hand clenched into a fist as I watched Willow's reaction. Her expression was cold and distant. She said flatly, I forgot to mention it last time. Completely ignoring the hand Makoto had extended toward her. Makoto awkwardly withdrew his hand. Willow continued, I'm getting married. Her words came out fast, almost too quickly, and she instinctively reached into her purse. Her phone slipped for a second before she caught it tightly. Everything on the surface looked calm, but only I knew how much that small action betrayed her composure. Married. Makoto nodded slightly. I heard. To George, right? Willow pressed her lips together. Yeah. She looked restless, as if she couldn't stand to stay another second. I'm leaving. Maria's waiting for me. But Makoto suddenly grabbed her hand, his expression full of sorrow. Willow, he said softly, I know it's a bit too late for me to turn back now, but at least, can we still be friends? If it's okay with you, would you take a walk with me? Chapter 7. As soon as the words left his mouth, Makoto realized he had lost control. He quickly released her hand, stood up first, apologized, and walked out of the restaurant. Through the glass door, I saw him shake his head in quiet disappointment. Willow froze for a moment, then hurried after him, her steps unsteady. She was about to push the door open but paused halfway, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath before walking out. From behind the glass, I couldn't hear what she said. I only saw her lift a hand to wipe the corner of her eyes. In the end, Willow didn't reject Makoto. The familiar street was covered with scattered golden leaves, lonely and quiet. Before Makoto went abroad, Willow used to accidentally run into him on this very road. Her eyes would always shine with excitement until they dimmed again when she saw the heroine by his side. Each time, I followed behind her. When she turned around, I would smile and say, Why are you heading back already? You waited all this time just to walk this road, didn't you? The younger Willow would blush, flustered at being found out. I'd add, what a pity to leave now. The person I was waiting for stood me up too, why don't we walk together? She'd press her lips and mutter, I wasn't waiting for anyone. But her ears were burning red. I'd shrug and say, all right, you weren't waiting for anyone. Let's just say I invited you. The truth was, the person I was waiting for was her. But just like Makoto couldn't see her, Willow couldn't see me either. She rejected my offer, but that didn't stop us from becoming two lonely souls sharing the same road. After a few times, Willow finally snapped. She stopped, turned to me, and shouted, I'll wait for him. That's what I'm doing, waiting for him. Stop wasting your time. I looked straight at her and said calmly, that I'll wait for you. Willow froze. And so did I. Chapter 8. Actually, before I was brought into this world, I already loved Willow. So when I learned that my mission was to save her, I was happy. Every time, I thought, let Willow be a little happier. Just a little happier. The first time we walked down this street together, neither of us spoke. The second, third, fourth time, we finally began walking side by side. Then came holding hands, kissing, and treating the fallen autumn leaves as our wedding veil. She had experienced so many regrets, I wanted to make up for each and every one of them. Someday, I thought, she'll finally see me. And when that day comes, I'll make sure she sees only me. A dry branch snapped underfoot with a crisp crack. I came back to my senses and stopped walking. Ahead of me, Willow and Makoto walked side by side in silence, their backs slowly fading from view at the end of the street. Chapter 9. When Willow came home, she was holding a box of strawberry cake. It was from that bakery we used to visit often, our favorite flavor. But ever since we moved, it was only me who would make the long drive just to bring it back for her. I took the box from her hands, studying her face carefully, and asked, "Where did you go?" She said, "A friend was feeling down. I stayed with her for a while." I smiled faintly. "So, this sad friend of yours drove all the way to the next city just to buy you this cake?" The air froze for a moment. Willow's expression stiffened. "What are you trying to say?" she asked. I just looked at her without answering. Perhaps it was my gaze, but Willow seemed to grow impatient under it. She snapped, "How long are you going to keep being paranoid over something so baseless?" My heart clenched painfully. I frowned and asked slowly and clearly, "You didn't meet Makoto, did you?" Willow froze, realizing what I meant. Her face twisted in disbelief. She bit her lip and said, "You followed me." Chapter 10. She let out a long sigh and said, "Makoto came back to the country a few days ago. I only found out today. He wanted to catch up with old classmates, not just me." I asked, "Then why didn't you tell me?" She lowered her gaze and said softly, "I didn't want you to overthink it. And now that you've seen it yourself, you know we just met once." I replied, "Just once." A bitter laugh escaped my throat. Willow frowned. "Can you stop being so passive-aggressive? What exactly did we do? Were we being flirty? Did we hug? Did I betray you in any way?" No, they hadn't. They hadn't even held hands. From anyone else's perspective, it really was just one ordinary meeting. Maybe I was just being paranoid. After all, I'd seen Willow and Makoto interact before. Even when they were still full of tension and unspoken feelings, and I was never like this. But this time felt different. I stared at her and said, "It's not the same." She asked, "What's not the same?" I said, "How could you walk that road with someone else after walking it with me?" She scoffed, "It's just a road. Just a road." On that road, I had waited for her for so long. Through the wind, the rain, the thunder, and the blazing sun. Waited for what felt like forever, until she finally turned around. And to her, that road was just another place, something she could walk with anyone, meaningless. I asked quietly, "Then why did you wait there every day before?" Willow froze. I said, "You know, don't you? Back then, you were just like me. You knew it was different." Chapter 11. I couldn't even remember the last time Willow and I had a Cold War. But this time, our friends seemed more anxious than we were. Ever since the last wedding disaster, they had all been waiting for the next one. Waiting for everything to finally settle down. I said to them, "She met with Makoto." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before one of them cautiously asked, "And what did they do?" I hesitated. When I really thought about it, it was nothing more than a walk. Nothing technically wrong. The friends sounded puzzled. "That's it? That's really nothing, man. Just as I expected." He continued, "If they walk together openly, doesn't that mean she's really let go of the past? George, be honest, are you still hung up on what that kid said? They told me to relax, to stop overthinking. That I was making a mountain out of a molehill. That I should focus on the good things instead." When it came to Willow and me, my friends always had endless stories to tell. The first Christmas Eve we spent together, Willow took an overnight train just to deliver me an apple of peace. That winter, she waited downstairs at my dorm early in the morning just so we could watch the first snowfall together. The wind was freezing, her cheeks were flushed red, her breath turning into white mist. I rushed down, pulled her into my arms, and asked, "Willow, what are you doing here?" She huffed softly and said, "Don't you get it? If we stand in the snow together, it counts as growing old together too." Willow had never touched a needle and thread before, but she still tried to knit me a scarf, pricking her fingers until they were covered in tiny drops of blood. Those memories felt like they happened just yesterday. And maybe my friends were right. After all, we had gone through so much together. They had only met once after 4 years, just walked a short stretch of road together. What could that possibly mean? Chapter 12. I told Andrew about those old memories. I said, "Willow isn't someone who doesn't know how to give." That winter Andrew cut me off immediately, rolling his eyes. "She stood for hours in the cold just to watch the first snow with you, right?" He went on, "And she knitted you matching scarves, huh? You two walked down the street wearing the same scarf and almost got hit by a car, right? She cooked for you, shared your hardships, right?" I was speechless. I said quietly, "But after we got married, we still loved each other, didn't we?" Andrew suddenly went silent, a rare thing for him. After a long pause, he said, "Come on, man. Stop lying to yourself. You don't even need to say those words, I've heard my mom repeat them 1,000 times. What do you want me to tell you? That you were both in love? That your love was worth it? You're just trying to convince yourself that what you gave had meaning. But if it truly were equal, if it really was mutual, you wouldn't need to say it out loud." I realized my hand was trembling slightly. I asked, "Did I tell you about Willow's betrayal?" Andrew shook his head. "You never said anything bad about my mom. Not once." Then he took out a piece of paper, wrote down a string of numbers, and slid it over to me. He said, "I saw it here. Hashtag chapter 13. On the slip of paper was an email address. I didn't log in to check it. I just ran my fingers over the string of characters that followed the password, my moon. When I got home, there was an unfinished embroidery piece lying on the table. Willow had come back early. She was in the kitchen, wearing an apron, making soup for me. Willow knew I had stomach issues. Back when we were in college, she used to learn how to make soup in the dorm kitchen, and would bring it to me in a thermos. "You're home." She poked her head out of the kitchen. "Yeah." Willow brought out the steaming soup, stirring it slowly until it cooled to the perfect temperature. She asked, "You came back pretty late today. Did you go out drinking again? Do you feel unwell?" I shook my head. In the 4 years we'd been together, we had fought a few times, small and big arguments alike. But most of the time, we reconciled naturally, just like now. She leaned softly against me and asked, "So, did you eat dinner outside?" Her head rested lightly on my chest. Through the thin layers of our sweaters, I wondered if she could hear the heartbeat that had always belonged half to her. I nodded. "Yeah, I ate a little." She smiled faintly. "If you get hungry later, I'll make you something else." Willow straightened up, then began talking about the new wedding plan I drafted for her. She said, "I don't think the date you picked is very good. Let's change it to this one, it's the luckiest day for weddings this year." Then she continued, "Also, can we switch the hotel? It's a bit more expensive, just a few hundred more per table, but the food is so much better. And for the honeymoon, I want to go to this little island my friend recommended. We could stay there for a while, the weather's lovely." Her eyes sparkled as she spoke. She said a lot, even reminded me to make sure the hotel security team was extra careful this time. While she spoke, she touched the ring on her middle finger and said softly, a little aggrieved, "It should have already been on my ring finger by now." I brushed the back of my hand gently against her cheek and asked, "Is there anything else you want to tell me?" She lifted her gaze, eyes slightly lost and uncertain. I swallowed down the words that almost escaped my lips, forcing myself to stay calm. Then I asked again quietly, "Is there? If there is, tell me now." Hashtag chapter 14. I wanted to have an honest talk with Willow. Even if she'd had countless moments of missing Makoto, as long as she told me, we could work through anything. But Willow only fixed her bright gaze on me and smiled lightly. "No. I know his appearance made you overthink. Last time was just a farewell. We won't be in contact anymore." I withdrew my hand and smiled. I didn't press further. In the final week, Willow went to see her best friend again. I logged into the email account Andrew had given me. This account wasn't linked to any of Willow's apps. There were hundreds of emails in the outbox, all to the same recipient. No name, just a contact note that was the moon emoji from the keyboard. They read, "Happy birthday. I hope you're happy every day. The mid-autumn moon is especially round this year. This song is exactly your style, quiet with a light breezy chorus. It's snowing earlier than in past years. Embroidered moon. JPG. Crocheted scarf.jpg. They set off fireworks at Back Lake, it was so late someone complained. Your topic choice this time is unique. The speech went smoothly, you took first place. Happy graduation." There were 2 unsent drafts, one titled, "I'm Getting Married," and another a photo of the moon taken that night on Wutong Street when he walked with her. None of the emails had been opened. Probably, after Makoto went abroad, he abandoned this outdated way of keeping in touch. Even without a single reply, Willow never forgot to send him festival blessings, and she never missed any milestone in his life. For whole years. The 4 years we were together. Hashtag chapter 15. Suddenly, a flood of moments came back to me. I remembered that early morning by Back Lake, the two of us talking. When I came back with my coat, I saw Willow typing a message. I said, "Huh, why did security show up?" She said, illegal fireworks. That group got caught. I watched with interest as the guards chased them down on motorcycles, never wondering who Willow planned to share that funny scene with. I remembered the year she waited downstairs with a thermos for me. When I saw her, she was staring at her phone, lost in thought. And only snapped back when I touched her shoulder, then asked if my stomach still hurt. I said, I drank too much yesterday, usually it doesn't hurt. And after I started drinking your soup, I haven't felt uncomfortable at all. Relieved, Willow smiled and handed me a scarf. I saw the delicate little leaf at the end and exclaimed, "You knitted this?" When she nodded, I hugged her, excited, and kissed her. I remembered how before one anniversary, we had a fight. We gave each other the silent treatment for nearly a week, both stubborn, neither sending a single text to give in. But in that time, Willow sent Makoto an email to congratulate him on winning a debate competition. Chapter 16. So many moments I once overlooked now made sense when I saw those emails. It turned out that the first scarf she knitted wasn't for me. Before she embroidered that leaf, she had first stitched a moon. The song she loved most, she hadn't shared it with me first. When she passed her postgraduate entrance exam, I wasn't the first one to know. Even on the very first day we got together, Willow deleted Makoto's contact from her messaging app. I never saw any trace of another man on her social media. Yet she somehow knew exactly when Makoto competed, which projects he joined, what prizes he won. And she sent him her blessings every single time. I closed my eyes, trying to calm my breathing, but the anger inside me refused to fade. A sharp pain hit my stomach. I bent down beside the couch, clutching it for support, and threw up into the trash can. The wedding plan booklet on the table looked blindingly white. I tore it into pieces and threw it away. Chapter 17. I went to find Andrew. From a distance, he looked paler than when I first met him. The loose-fitting clothes hung off his thin frame. When he squatted down, he curled like a shrimp. He was frowning, as if in pain. I hurried over to help him up. "What's wrong?" I asked. I tried to hail a cab to take him to the hospital, but Andrew grabbed my arm and straightened up again. He shook his head. "It's nothing. Maybe I just ate something bad." I asked him, "When we separated, was it ugly? Was it bad?" His smile froze, his fingers tightened around mine until his knuckles turned white. His eyes reddened. After a moment of silence, I realized what he was thinking. I sighed softly and said, "I'm sorry you had to see all that. It must have hurt, didn't it?" Andrew couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears rolled down his cheeks in big drops. "Choking up," he said, "Dad." I looked at his trembling shoulders and gently patted his head. I said, "How about Dad makes you something tasty, will you forgive him then?" Chapter 18. Andrew said he wanted to eat my cooking. Orphans are supposed to be good at taking care of themselves, but I've always been rough around the edges. As long as I could survive and stay full, taste never really mattered. Seeing how hungry he was, I quickly fried some egg rice and made 2 simple vegetable dishes. He ate with satisfaction, mouth full, choking several times from eating too fast. "Slow down," I said, patting his back. I could feel his ribs beneath my hand, so thin. How could he have become this thin? At the wedding, he'd seemed strong, even a little sturdy. I asked, "How did you end up here? After we separated, she and Mako, did she marry someone else? Did he ever hurt you?" Then I asked again quietly, "What were we like before? Was I a good father?" Andrew had a mouthful of rice, but his answer came clear and firm. "We were great. You're the best dad in the whole world." Looking into his earnest eyes, I suddenly felt something warm spread through my chest. I smiled. "Really?" He nodded hard. "Really?" Chapter 19. Andrew said he wanted to go to the beach with me. I agreed. I guess in my past life I must have taken him to the seaside many times. When I was taking Andrew to the airport, Willow called. She had just gotten home and asked, "Why aren't you home?" "Sneaking out to work overtime again. I thought we weren't going to have kids, why work so hard? And why hasn't the food in the fridge been touched? Is my cooking that bad?" The truth was I'd already moved out, but I hadn't taken any of my things with me. I didn't want any of them anymore. Willow kept fussing on the phone. "Don't push yourself so hard right before the wedding. Skipping meals and working overtime while planning a wedding, how can you survive that? It's going to be a big effort. I'm worried you'll faint on stage. Also, honey, I brought you a present. Are you sure you don't want to come back and see?" Fine, I'll come see you. It's been a week, I miss you. I said nothing. Willow paused. Honey, can you hear me?
Only when the airport announcements sounded in the background did she realize something was wrong and ask where I was. I looked at Andrew, who came running over with a drink, patted his shoulder, and said in a calm voice, Willow. Let's break up. Chapter 20. Andrew had a good eye for places warm and bright. The sunset alone could wash away a whole day's fatigue. The only downside was that Willow nearly blew up my phone when we landed.
Andrew was wildly excited. I blocked Willow and turned my phone off. He seemed even thinner. Even though he'd been eating with me, there was no meat left on his face. I noticed he had many scars on his head, arms, legs, very visible. The one on his neck looked especially new and shocking. Are you hurt? I asked. He turned his head and said nonchalantly, Dad, you don't know, I like extreme sports. These are from crashes. Pointing at his head, he added, this was from rock climbing, the rope wasn't tied right and I hit a rock. I asked, what about your neck? Who did that? Did someone bully you? He scoffed. Please. Andrew stood up a little skeleton-like and puffed his chest. I used to be the boss around here. Who'd dare bully me? That one was from falling asleep in class, head drooped, and my pen stabbed my neck. From Andrew's stories, he'd been a wild kid back then, and I was always the one to talk sense into him. He didn't want me staring at his scars. He ran off to build a sandcastle and played with the other children. Then swindled some of their props and ran back to show me. He'd really been a ringleader of mischief. I rubbed my forehead in helplessness. Andrew built a big mound that I couldn't tell what it was. What's that? I asked. He dove into the sand and came back out grinning. It's like I was born again, he said. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Frozen for a moment, I watched as Andrew's movements slowed. The sea breeze lifted his clothes, his pale face seemed to fade into the wind. He said, Dad. Slowly he knelt before me. His voice was low but utterly earnest as he said, tell her the truth. Make her terminate the baby. Chapter 21. I helped him up and shook my head. I said, he is you. If he's gone, what will I do when you're gone too? He laughed and said, well, then you can just raise a dog. I looked puzzled. Have I ever raised a dog? He said, yeah. Andrew said vividly, sure, a little bastard dog just like me, totally ungrateful, such a troublemaker. Before you picked it up, it was just a stray. Like you. I laughed. I said, then how could it possibly be a stray dog? Andrew tilted his head and looked at me. I said, a dog like yours, Dad would definitely have taken it home. Chapter 22. These days, I can't shake off a deep sense of unease. The sun is shining brightly, and Andrew was out on the sea riding a jet ski, waving at me from afar. Yet I can't help but feel that he won't come back. George. I turned my head and saw Willow, someone I hadn't seen in almost half a month. She'd lost a lot of weight, dark circles under her eyes, and her lips were terribly dry. I asked in confusion, what are you doing here? She burst out in anger, why can't I be here? You just left without a word, without saying anything. Halfway through her words, she placed her hand on her slightly swollen belly. Her lips trembled as she said, why did you lie to me and say I wasn't pregnant? Why did you leave me right before the wedding? She bit her lip and said, this is our child, George. I swear nothing ever happened between Makoto and me. I rubbed my temples and sighed, no, that's not what I meant. Calm down first. She said, no. You're coming back with me. Willow closed her eyes for a moment, then said in a trembling voice, no matter why you suddenly sentenced me to death, at least give me a chance to explain. Let's go back and talk it out. Don't do this. Don't treat me like this. Looking at her in such pain, I found it absurd, and yet, deep inside, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of sadness. I said, Willow, you've always had regrets, haven't you? Regrets that I could feel the very first moment I saw that email password. My moon. The thousand-some days and nights I spent with her could never fill that emptiness. Chapter 23. Even now, it's true that nothing ever really happened between them. She could still explain it away, they only met once. At worst, over the past 4 years, she sent more than 100 unanswered emails. At most, it could be called one-sided concern for a friend. But in the 17 years after we got married, they must have met many times, had many meals together as friends. And then, at some point I'll never know, they started holding hands, hugging, kissing, sleeping together.
Her feelings for me changed from guilt to disgust. Maybe once, Willow really did love me, really wanted to spend her life with me.
But no one starts off being unloving. Chapter 24.
I had just opened my mouth to speak when in the next second, a wave of dizziness suddenly hit me.
The sun split into two in my vision.
I blinked, it felt just like my first day here.
Willow held on to me, but in the next instant, Andrew came running and slapped her hard across the face. He shouted, "Get away! Stay away from him!"
That small, skinny child didn't even seem to know where his strength came from. He knocked Willow to the ground with that single slap.
Willow covered her face in shock. "It's you! You're the one who took him away."
She staggered, trying to get up, but Andrew pinned her down with all his might.
He struck her again and again, yelling, "You're not taking him. You don't deserve him." My vision grew blurrier and blurrier.
I wanted to go over and pull them apart, but my body had no strength left.
In the next moment, I saw a blur of red trickling down along Willow's thigh. The child. Andrew. I couldn't help looking at him. He looked back at me, his eyes were full of sorrow, yet he smiled.
The scene before me faded rapidly, everything pulling away into the distance.
"Dad," I heard Andrew scream hoarsely, his voice breaking apart. "Come home."
"I'm sorry, Dad."
Chapter 25. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my original world, back to being 18. The age I was before I crossed into that book. It was as if everything had just been a dream, one that vanished completely upon waking. The book in my arms had been warmed by my body heat. I opened it, only to find that the ending had changed. The second female lead, who had vanished without a trace halfway through the story, had now become the main heroine. And my name was written clear as day in the position of the male lead. The story of redemption had turned into a story of a wife searching for her husband. Willow had miscarried and gone insane. Truly insane.
The text of the book read, blood slowly flowed from between Willow's legs, and Andrew's face grew paler and paler. Willow tried to call out to George for help, but no matter how much she screamed, he just stood there, as if he couldn't hear a thing. She struggled to crawl toward him, but Andrew clung to her tightly. Her body felt heavier by the second, her mind growing hazy with fear. She wanted to slap Andrew away, but her hand only met air. Andrew was disappearing, melting into a pool of blood that slowly merged with the stains beneath him on the sand. In the end, like George, he was gone without a trace.
Willow nearly drowned in the sea. After being rescued and taken to the hospital, she called the police. She said, "It was that lunatic you interrogated before, he's the one who took my husband, who caused my miscarriage. And now he's gone. Find him, why aren't you finding him?"
The confused looks of the police only made Willow angrier. She soon realized that everyone else seemed to have collectively lost their memories.
No one remembered George. No one remembered Andrew.
There was no record of her ever being pregnant.
Willow refused to believe it.
She called her old friends one by one, the wedding guests, even reached out to Makoto. Every answer was the same, none of them remembered. Makoto held Willow in his arms, looking at her with pity.
"You're sick, Willow. You look terrible. Let's go for a walk, okay?"
"Yeah," Willow said coldly, staring at him.
"It was on that walk with you that he started to hate me."
Then she went mad, running wildly through the streets. Makoto tried to stop her, to pull her into his arms, but the crazed Willow slapped him hard across the face.
After a while, she finally quieted down. Makoto said, "Willow, I'll take you to the hospital. You're just sick." "I don't blame you."
But Willow only stared past him, her eyes burning.
"There," she said. Makoto turned around and saw a pile of fallen leaves. Willow said softly, "You know what? We kissed there once, right in the leaves. It was so romantic. George said the golden sycamores were my wedding dress."
Makoto thought Willow had lost her mind. He finally found a chance to tie her up and take her to the hospital. The doctor diagnosed her with bipolar disorder.
She wandered aimlessly day after day, sneaking out whenever she got the chance, just to ask strangers about George. Her family, unable to stand it any longer, sent her to a psychiatric hospital for mandatory treatment. Willow insisted she wasn't sick.
George was real, it was everyone else who had gone mad, forgetting him. She couldn't understand that this was all just the world inside a book.
She had once been happy.
It was she herself who had turned her ending into something tragic and unfinished.
Chapter 26. 18 is such a wonderful age.
That year, I got into my dream university and also received the mission reward from the system's final settlement.
Back then, my choice had been family.
I had longed for a home for so long. And now, I had one: a father and mother who loved me, grandparents who doted on me. I studied hard and ranked among the top students.
My parents would come to visit me at school during every holiday, take me traveling. I made many friends and was never lonely again.
Everything went smoothly. I graduated, built my own career, and lived a steady, fulfilled life.
But sometimes, I still thought of Andrew.
In the book, his ending had been simple: he vanished.
No extra chapter, no epilogue, just gone.
One day, I saw a filthy stray dog by the roadside. It was all skin and bones, yet full of energy, darting up and down walls with surprising agility for something so small. Some people tried to catch it to help, but it was too clever, no one could get close.
Until I decided to try myself. Unfortunately, I missed grabbing the scruff of its neck.
I thought it would bite me out of fear, but instead, the little thing just stared at me for a few seconds, and then rubbed its head gently against my hand.
Well, would you look at that? Two-faced little rascal, huh?
One of the rescue workers from before muttered through clenched teeth.
Damn thing nearly bit me the other day. Why's it so tame with George?
I brushed aside the dog's dirty fur. It was even smaller and thinner than I'd thought. There were many scars on its body, especially around its neck, where a patch of fur was completely gone. I couldn't tell if it had been fighting or abused, but when I touched it, it didn't flinch at all.
I took it home. In the large courtyard, there were many other dogs.
The little one froze, staring up at me with wide, watery eyes.
Over the years, I'd built several rescue shelters for stray animals. Since I couldn't handle everything alone, I'd assigned most of them to others to manage.
But this courtyard, this one was different.
All the dogs here shared one thing in common.
I smiled and said, "I told you dogs like you will never have to wander again."
Welcome home, Andrew. #Andrew's Extra, from Andrew's perspective.
#Chapter 1.
I lied to my dad.
The truth is, my relationship with him was never good at all.
When I was little, I really liked my mom. Dad was always busy working overseas back then. I barely saw him.
Most of the time, it was Mom who stayed with me. She played with me, slept beside me, took me to school. She was the only one there.
So one day, I asked her, "Why doesn't Dad come home?"
She crouched down and said, "Because your dad is the most irresponsible man alive. He only knows how to work. He never cares about his family. Everything you eat and use, Mom pays for it all and keeps everything together."
I said, "Bad dad, bad dad. I don't want a dad like that."
But the truth was, I didn't know Dad hadn't abandoned us. He had given Mom all his salary cards and savings books. Everything we used at home, every expense, was paid with his earnings.
Dad did spend time with me too, once.
But I was too little then, and Mom always spoke badly of him at home. So whenever Dad tried to hold me, I would cry and hit him, screaming for him to go away.
He stopped trying after a while. I don't remember any of that though.
In my memories, it was always Mom, the one who stayed by my side. When I grew older and Dad finally came back to the country, I started to hate him even more.
He wouldn't let me eat candy, said it would rot my teeth.
Wouldn't let me play games for too long, said it would hurt my eyes. I thought he barely spent any time with me, yet wanted to control everything I did. He had no special skills, no achievements, so who was he to lecture me? Then one day, while I was playing video games, he came over again and asked if I wanted to go fishing with him. That was when my rebellious phase exploded. I yelled, "Can't you stop bothering me when I'm playing?
You don't understand me at all. You don't know what I want, what I like. All you ever do is force me to do what you want. You're so annoying."
What I didn't know was that the game console and all the games I played were secretly bought by him. He told me they were gifts from my uncle, afraid that Mom would scold him for spending the money.
Dad sighed and said, "I just worry you'll get too lonely. Fishing can be fun, you might actually enjoy it."
I snapped back, "God, you're so naggy. If you like fishing so much, then go by yourself. No wonder Mom calls you useless. You can't even earn much, and you still love to boss people around." She was right. Useless people are always the ones who lecture others the most. Chapter 2. Dad froze. He stayed silent for a long time before sighing softly. Every time I yelled at him, I actually regretted it afterward. But my teenage pride was stronger than my guilt. I just couldn't bring myself to apologize. Besides, I thought he wouldn't remember it anyway. Dad was always like that, so busy that nothing ever seemed to bother him. Even when Mom smashed all his fishing rods to pieces, he didn't get angry. He never said a bad word about her. All he ever said was, "Your mom has a hard time taking care of you alone. It's normal for her to lose her temper sometimes."
But Mom often told me how much she had sacrificed for this family.
She would tell me about knitting scarves for Dad in winter, making soup for his stomach aches. Staying with him through hard times, like a free maid, she said.
I was tired of hearing it. So I said, if Dad's so terrible, then why don't you divorce him? Mom blared at me, snapping, if I divorced him, what would happen to you? Everything I do is for you. How can you say something so heartless?
As for Dad, he had bought Mom plenty of luxury items over the years, but for himself, he barely spent a dime. I once asked him, "You keep saying Mom's great, but I've never seen her buy you anything." He smiled and said, "Of course she has.
She bought me a strawberry cake just the other day." Strawberry cake? Please. I'd have believed orange cake sooner. What kind of man gets happy over a strawberry cake? Was he sick or something? I'd never seen him care about anything else in life. Well, that's not true, he did love dogs. Whenever we passed a pet shop, he'd stop, staring at the furry puppies through the glass with a soft look in his eyes. I used to think all he liked were strawberry cakes and dogs. But now I know, the strawberry cake was Mom's favorite, not his. Dad liked fried rice with egg. He liked stir-fried Chinese broccoli. He liked those small, bright green peas. I'd never seen him eat those before, so I assumed he didn't like them. Now, as I stuffed them into my mouth, my arms began to itch, but I held back from scratching, staring into his eyes. So it was because of me. My vision blurred with tears. I remembered after my graduation exams, Dad had been so excited. He had been planning for months to take the whole family on a trip. But I thought it sounded boring. I wanted to try riding motorcycles with my friends instead. It was dangerous, so of course he would try to lecture me again. That night, I snuck out quietly, but he caught me anyway. I shrugged and said, seriously, a family trip to the beach. How cliché is that? Fine, I'll go with you, alright? Just stop trying to control me. I'm almost an adult, I want my freedom. He said, when I was young, I used to ride motorcycles too. Let me tell you, but I didn't wait for him to finish. I waved my hand impatiently and ran out the door. He saw that I wouldn't listen, so he grabbed my protective gear and ran after me, texting as he went. Andrew, I'm not stopping you. Just wait a second. If you ride without protection and get hurt, you'll regret it. Take the gear with you. I rolled my eyes helplessly and told the driver to stop. I lowered the car window, waiting for him to bring it over. But nothing happened. And then I heard a loud crash behind me. Dad was lying in a pool of blood. And across the road, I saw Mom with another man's arm wrapped around her shoulders. ## Chapter 3. Dad will never speak again. He doesn't move, doesn't smile, and he won't sit at the computer to play games anymore. He will never take care of me again. Mom came over to hug me. I slapped her across the face. I bit her, slapped her, pinched her. In the hospital, I screamed at her like a lunatic, calling her shameless, calling her a bitch. She didn't fight back. She just had that other man pin me to the ground and take me home to lock me up. I couldn't go out, but the friends I had made before still came in handy. I got them to ambush Makoto for me. They sent me photos showing him beaten and bloody. But I still wasn't satisfied. I didn't just want this bastard to suffer, I wanted my mom to regret it. I hunted for evidence of their affair to expose later and ruin her reputation. I found an email address. My mom, love-struck and pleading with that man to love her, so cautious. She actually started meeting him not long after marrying my dad. At first they only met once. Later they met many times. I don't even know at which meeting they started sleeping together. I frantically copied all of it, but before I could spread it, they discovered me. Willow slapped me in front of Makoto after my dad died. It was the first time she had hit me. I screamed at them, if you've got the guts, sue me, do you even have the nerve? Willow, do you fucking have the nerve? Send me away then. Even if you all died, I still wouldn't be appeased. My dad will never come back. They not only locked me up, they confiscated all my electronic devices. They wouldn't let me out, so I banged my head until my face was bloody. If someone dies, they won't be able to cover it up. But all of that was taking too long. There were fewer and fewer sharp things in the room. After being rescued again, I fixed my eyes on the 4-needle. Facing the mirror, I plunged it through the major artery in my neck. ## Chapter 4. Half conscious, I heard someone speaking beside my ear. I thought I had failed to die again. I heard the voice ask, "What do you want to trade?" "My dad." The voice asked, "Your dad?"
"Oh, the one who came in over 20 years ago." I tried to persuade him not to stay. "Otherwise, why do all sweet love stories end right when hearts finally connect?" I said. "Dad," the voice asked, "do you want to save him?" "Yeah." It said, "If you change the past, you'll never be born." How strange. I told him before that if he ever regretted it, he could return. He hasn't been doing well all these years. So why has he never called upon me to take him back? Why? Why did he always endure everything silently, pretending nothing happened? Why was he never angry with me, always feeling guilty even when it was my fault? Suddenly, I remembered when I was little. Mom had gone out to play mahjong, and I got a high fever, crying until I couldn't breathe. When Dad came home, he carried me and ran straight to the hospital.
"Andrew, don't cry. Dad's here. Dad will always be here." The voice asked, "Do you want to go back and help him, even if it costs you your life?"
I murmured, "Dad," it said, "once time is reversed, there's no taking it back, little one.
Do you choose life, or do you choose?"
I chuckled softly and said, "Dad, I'm sorry."
The past and the present overlapped. I suddenly sat up in bed.
Under the bright lights, the groom was placing a ring on the bride's finger.
It was Dad.
Chapter 5.
After I died, I wished I could be a dog. But, would he recognize me?
I made friends with many puppies, searching the world for George. A puppy friend told me that far, far away, there was someone who looked just like my dad. I ran and ran for such a long, long time. Finally, at some street corner, a big net fell over my head. Warm hands lifted me up, and I smelled that familiar scent.
It was him. Woof, woof, woof. Other people said, "This little dog is pretty fierce, huh?" Not fierce at all. I was calling for Dad. Even a puppy misses his dad.